And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting with the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
All right, everybody. This isn't your ordinary Starlink launch. Oh, wait. No. This isn't Starlink. This is NASA Spaceflight Live. I am Sawyer Rosenstein, and I will be your host as we take a look at some of these live views right now of Starbase for a quite unique edition of our show today. First off, I'm seeing some 5x5s in chat, which means you guys can hear me. Love seeing that. Also, hopefully we'll get some 5x5s to the person that will be joining me today, and that is Adrian Vile. Adrian, how's it going?
It's going absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it's going to be a special one, I feel like. With it will be just us two having a good chat here for an hour or so and making this as interactive and as fun as possible for you all while we talk about space, whatever we're going to talk about, because nobody can stop us, Sawyer.
Can't stop us now. Nope. Just the two of us. Oh, wait. I don't want to already get us copyright claims there. And behind the scenes, through thick and thin, through internet and lack thereof, Patrick is behind the scenes pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and helping us out here with these views. And of course, a reminder, as always, NASA Spaceflight Live is a show mainly about you guys. So please feel free to ask us your questions by tagging us at NASA Spaceflight. We'll start off here with some of your Starship questions. Then the Space Coast guy in me wants to talk a little bit about the Psyche mission, so we'll do that, and we'll come back to more of your Starbase questions as well. So it's all fair game today, ladies and gentlemen. Adrian,
Yes, Sawyer.
right now, still love that beautiful view of the full stack, and then we had that tweet yesterday from SpaceX basically saying they're ready for launch. What are you thinking?
I mean, this is like, I think, the third time they have now said that they are ready, or somebody from SpaceX has said they are ready. I think there's a very fluid definition of ready sometimes at SpaceX and how they approach readiness. Of course, the FAA has not yet said or reported a launch license. Of course, the full stack is back, but that also doesn't mean the FDS is armed. And there's also still some work going on at the OLM sometimes. I wouldn't have much doubt if right now somebody would tell me, yeah, this stack could launch today. I wouldn't doubt that there's probably a technical readiness for some flight. The question is just, does SpaceX have still items they also want to fix? But yeah, overall it's cool to have a full stack back, and the question remains what they will use this full stack for, because we know they will destack one more time, right?
Yeah, right. They still have the flight termination system to arm, which as of now, FTS is still not armed, and as we've seen last time, they have to destack to pull the pins and get all of that set up. Because, again, there's multiple levels to the flight termination system and FTS activation. So there's the software side, but this one has a physical, pull to activate kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally arming pins, right? They're literally going there with a man lift, and somebody makes sure the FTS is well placed. They're checking everything. They're usually replacing some harnesses. We have also seen that before. And then they pull an arming pin, like a hardware arming pin, that makes sure that the charges are armed at that point from a hardware side. That of course means there will still be like software arming, which will be happening way closer to launch. But in that moment, it's no longer impossible to arm them. Basically, the hardware pin enables to arm them. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Also, arming pins are what I have in my voodoo dolls, but I mean, what? No, I don't have those.
And that's one pun token.
That's the thing. This episode is going to be a little bit special in terms of even just the flow of things here, so expect more puns than usual. Also, because I feel like I've been doing a lot fewer puns than usual recently, so I got to make up for it somehow.
I feel like also they the bundle of people on this stream is basically the combination of NSF with the highest pun density. So, yeah, it's gonna be fun.
I wonder if there is a calculation somewhere to figure out a pun density ratio.
Yeah, it's like the pun master spreadsheet.
Oh gosh, don't mention spreadsheets.
Oh, I will.
Here's the thing I see a bunch of different people asking here. For those who are unaware, the U.S. government shutdown has been avoided for another 45 days at least. That has officially been passed through the House, Senate, and signed by the president. So, do you think
Yay.
that means that we have a chance of a quicker road to hop?
I mean, the first question is, would the shutdown impact the regulatory process here? I can at least tell from the FAA side that the permission of launch licenses, commercial launch licenses, and the processing of that would have been considered critical. So that's not something that would have been influenced in any way by the shutdown. However, there's always the possibility A, that fish and wildlife might have been affected, or B, that the like some supporting branch of the agencies or something is already limited, and with that starts to delay. But I would say there's not really. We never got any confirmation that the shutdown was really like would have been affecting the stack, right?
Right. There was no official word on that, but I think the assumption was that pretty much all of the regulatory bodies that take a look at getting launch licenses and, again, potential fish and wildlife concerns are typically federal or rely on federal funding. So,
For
I
sure.
guess
Yeah.
that's one less issue now with a hop. If that even happens in the next 45 days, because again, keep in mind, almost 44 days from now, they're going to have to do it all again. So,
Looking forward to that.
yeah, I'm not going to get political here, so I'll
Okay.
leave that at that, because otherwise, then that's a whole different kind of show.
But it's a funny prediction, right? 45 days from now, that's like what? Mid-November, right? That's
Mhm.
like 15th of November. Do you think that's like I would say it's a at least realistic timeline for a hop. Like if I don't think it will have hop before November. I at this point feel very confident it will not fly in October. So I feel like even that might be cutting it close, right?
I think so. Yeah, and I mean, I originally when the report was released by the FAA and SpaceX of the changes that would be made. At that point, I don't believe they had officially applied for a launch license yet. So,
That's okay. I'm gonna paint you a picture here, Sawyer, and then I want your opinion on something.
okay, are watercolors or chalk?
Actually, think of watercolors. Watercolors. Imagine it watercolors. So we know that the FAA won't, because it's not their place to comment, if SpaceX already submitted a launch license application. That's like the FAA has been on the record saying multiple times they are not the ones to confirm. That's a question you should ask SpaceX. So, and SpaceX, if you ask them, and I did, they won't reply to you if they already submitted a launch license. And here's my follow-up question here. The FAA won't confirm it because it's not their place to do it. SpaceX doesn't confirm it. Why would SpaceX not confirm that they have submitted for a launch license application if they didn't? If they did, like, why wouldn't they confirm it?
Right, because then, again, just given the way that Elon has been tweeting about this whole scenario, you'd think at that point then you would get a, well, we submitted our license and it hasn't been approved yet.
Yeah, because I feel like I feel like it would be a very good way for SpaceX to actually apply pressure and leverage to the FAA if they would say, yeah, we submitted the launch license application on, I don't know, October something. But so far we have not seen any way of this confirmation. And again, NSF has reached out to SpaceX. We have reached out to the FAA to get statements from both. And SpaceX has not commented or not replied in time for this to tell us if they have submitted a launch license application. So I'm just saying, like, it's interesting that they have not confirmed it in any way, shape, or form.
So when is this watercolor going to be available now as a metal print in the shop?
Oh, you don't want painted watercolors by me in the store. I can tell you that. It's I don't feel like that would be something people would pay money for. I actually think I would have to pay people so they hang that on their wall.
One thing I bet people do want is some of my pictures now in the shop, right?
Oh yeah.
Come on, chat. Egg Adrian on. Tell him you want Sawyer prints.
I will. We will have a chat after this. And make sure they're on.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, thumb, pinky. I don't know which kind of prints you want, but oh wait, those are just fingerprints, not metal.
No,
print.
we usually like doing rockets. You know, like usually we do rockets on our storage, Sawyer.
Oh, never mind then.
Sorry, man.
Here's an interesting question, genuinely, from the Hoff, saying, what testing is going on before launch? I mean, we know obviously we're waiting on the license. We see that they full stacked it again. We got the tweet from SpaceX yesterday. What's actually happening right now ahead of at least this particular flight? I know there's things going on with the other boosters and stuff, and we'll talk about that, but it's terms of the stack that we have right now, what's going on?
That's a very good question, because so far SpaceX has not confirmed any testing plan going forward with this full stack. I mean, you would have to ask, like, why would they stack, right? Because if they wouldn't perform any testing, why would they stack right now with the FTS not armed? So there's probably some testing to do here. And I think the likely is either a cryo or a wet rest rehearsal. I think something in between there. Either we are talking about like a cryo with nitrogen and oxygen, or we are talking about a full-blown wet rest rehearsal with methane and liquid oxygen. I think that's the two likely possibilities of what will happen with this full stack.
Yeah,
What's your call?
I did see people asking, do you think they would do a wet dress rehearsal at this point? I don't think they would do a full wet dress, to be perfectly honest. I could definitely see them doing a full cryo test, though, at this point. I mean, what do you have to lose right now? You're waiting for... you don't have the license just yet, so you can't really launch. You've got everything fully stacked. You have the time. Why not do a test? I mean, we just saw Falcon Heavy static fire yesterday, so why not load it up and try again? Just make sure all of your seams are seamed, your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, and one last test.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, I think, like, there's always this risk management situation, right? Where your balance between another test could damage the stack versus another test could us help find more issues with the stack. Like, I think there's always this conflict of interest that you probably have somewhere. But I mean, so far they have not performed any full stack testing with the stack. There was like nothing done so far on the stack in terms of testing. So that it would really surprise me if we don't see any full stack testing.
And
at
honestly,
all.
most of the testing was back during the middle of the summer between the firing of Ship 25 and then the 33, which started off as 33, ended up, I think, 31 static fire test of number 9. I don't know. I feel like you need one more test at this point. It's been too long for this whole full stack.
Yeah, and also the ship QD, right? They modified the ship
Yes.
QD in a big way, and so far it has not been like the next big thing would for it to be would be the launch if they don't perform a test, and they have not used that ship QD on anything besides some ambient pressure.
Right, and some retract testing, basically.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I still think I feel like it's a no-brainer to see a cryo test at least.
I
But
hope so. I mean, any testing
yeah.
is good testing, especially with Starship.
Yeah, I mean, I think Starship enhances significantly in visuals when it's frosty. I think it's just it looks way more cool. Ha!
I get it.
There you go. I feel like we are 1-1 here now.
Oh, it's on.
Yeah.
uh, Peter asking a question here saying, can the stack just sit there for over a month?
Yes. Look at Booster 7 and Ship 24. That's sat on there for longer. This stack so far is way behind Booster 7 and Ship 24 in terms of overall stack time. There's probably some minor mitigation SpaceX at some point has to do with saltwater. Like, are there at the Cape? So at the Cape there are rockets that are out there, right, for a longer period of time, and it's also saltwater. It's also saltwater. So I don't think there's that much limitation, right? Like we had deltas on there for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, again, for the Delta, at least there's one left at now, but those would be protected inside the mobile service tower in 37B. Atlas and eventually Vulcan, they stay inside the VIF, the vertical integration facility. So normally they're out there at most for a couple of weeks. Go ahead, mark your bingo cards off. Shuttle had indeed stayed out there
Bingo.
for quite a while prior to launches. And in fact, we just had pictures of it, I think, about a week or two ago. But for STS 125, you also had STS 400, which was a rescue mission in the event that something went wrong with the Hubble servicing mission. Since they weren't close to the ISS, they didn't really have anywhere for refuge. So that stayed out on the pad Endeavour for quite a while there, ahead of the final flight to Hubble. And as Alex is pointing out in the back channel, SLS was out there for a really long time, then rolled back out, and was out there for another long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some damage that like this corrosive saltwater and salty air can do to your rockets, but if you're aware about it, I feel like it's not that dangerous if you're like protecting against it. And I mean, it's like NASA with SLS seems like if it would be even remotely possible to damage the rocket, they would be very careful about it because NASA tends to be very careful with SLS. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a good thing, though, that humidity in salt water hasn't caused any issues with any other crew capsules, especially from the CRS-2 program,
Oh
or
yeah.
the commercial crew, too. Yeah.
Also SpaceX, right? One Falcon 1 failed because of saltwater corrosion. If I remember
Right.
correctly.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm totally not talking about a launch, though, from, like, the last couple of years of another crew capsule. But,
Do you want to drop names here, Sawyer?
no, not really, but Starliner. Sorry. I had something in my throat there.
Yeah, it happens. It's the famous Starliner coughing.
Yeah, I joke about that only because this is going to be a really weird story, but then it's a really weird episode. I was literally sitting in a parking lot eating a hot dog at a great restaurant in Titusville, and that's when they mentioned that OFT2 was going to be delayed because of, yeah, it turns out later saltwater that got in the valves that got stuck, and that took quite a while to fix.
Yeah. That was so crazy because at that point we had it on the it was only delayed because of bad weather or something, right? Like it was on the pad at some point, and then because of weather they had to roll it back, right?
Oh yeah, I think it was L-2 or L-1 at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they rolled it back, and then the whole saltwater story came up, and it was like, it felt so close to launching, and then suddenly it was gone again. So that was an interesting launch. Speaking of interesting launches, there's another launch we should probably talk about, right, Sire?
Yeah, before we get to that though, I do want to thank some people here with their
There we
support.
go.
Another Adrian coming in
Huh.
with the super chat. Thank you very much for that. No message, but it's still very much appreciated. We've got the Drone Prince. Thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Jim Cavett, thank you for gifting 1 Red Team membership. Love seeing that name. Daniel Hogben, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Roland Hines, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. And let's see. Xorg FX guy, I really hope that's right, with the $20 super chat. Thank you, super generous. Asking a question here saying, is there a detailed mission profile for the HLS uncrewed demonstration scheduled for 2024? And does NSF have an article on the website about this?
That's a bit early, right?
I think a little bit.
I feel like SpaceX nor NASA don't have a full picture yet about the full capabilities and situation of Starship at that mission point. And without these specifics, you cannot really make like a detailed mission profile. I mean, we know what they probably want to test. They will probably test they have to, the retanking in orbit. They have to fuel up the depot, then fuel up the HLS demonstrator, then fly with it to the moon. Like that's probably the expectation we have. But any details, like how many tanker flights and anything like that's probably crystal ball stuff.
Do we have another Chris on the team? Chris Tobal?
Not another Chris.
No, but one thing
oh my god.
yeah. One thing I do want to point out, though, is that there are definitely forum topics about this. That is absolutely for sure on the NSF forums. And a reminder, you can now purchase L2 membership through shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Regular, just access to the forums, completely and totally free, and in fact required if you want to upgrade to L2. But that's when you get access to extra behind-the-scenes pictures, photos at full high resolution, including what Jack was able to get of HLS when we saw the hardware that was literally labeled HLS. That's all in there. There's also historical items going back to Shuttle, Buran, you name it. It's there's stuff in there. So again, that's all L2 available now through shop.nasaspaceflight.com.
So, can I now do my segue again, Sawyer?
I prefer skateboards, but sure, you can do a segue.
I will do a skateboard for you. So, another that launch is probably coming up way before Starship at this point. There's Psyche coming up. What's the situation with Psyche? Where are we with the mission right now? And why is it so exciting? Why is everybody excited for Psyche?
Well, Psyche involves the id, the ego, and the super... Oh, wait, nope, sorry, wrong Psyche. Psyche is the one you see on screen right now. That is NASA's mission to study a particular asteroid. Now, sure, we've just had the OSIRIS-REx mission, which came back from an asteroid, so why are we already doing another asteroid mission? Well, this one is so stinking cool, because this will be the first ever mission to an entirely metallic asteroid. So it's not rock, it's not ice, it's metal. And not just any metal, it is believed that this is potentially the core of a planet. Either one from the past or one that didn't form out in the asteroid belt. So this could be great to compare to our own core here on Earth and to the other cores of planets in the inner solar system here. And on top of that, it could talk about the formation of planets and how they became and how they are. And also just the metals on it are insane. I don't know how much I believe this number, but there was someone on PBS I saw an interview who said that it is potentially about 10,000 quadrillion dollars worth of metal on this one asteroid on 16 Psyche. So
That's
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 a,
like a crazy number.
that's a lot of zeros.
Yeah, it's like a certain amount of zeros where it gets very crazy. And I love always this concept of going outer space to learn something about Earth. Like it's like a very cool aspect of, I feel like, space exploration, which some people probably don't always have in their mind. They're like, oh, we are studying like rocks from outer space. We're like, no, we are studying these rocks to learn something about our rock.
Exactly. Yeah, our rock, and that could teach us a lot about what's going on potentially in the core of our planet, the formation of the core in our planet, which could lead to discoveries about the formation of cores in other planets that may contain life, especially for the exoplanets and planets outside of our solar system. It's just I love this mission so much. The possibilities of what we can find are absolutely crazy.
And
And I
also
did see,
bonus, it's launched on a Falcon Heavy.
yeah, that part doesn't stink either.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
cool rocket.
I did see someone asking what type of metal we're looking at here on Psyche. And I believe it's a nickel is a type of metal. I would have to look up the exact kind, but off the top of my head, I believe it's mainly nickel based, but there could be other metals, and that's part of why we're going there too.
Yeah, like I mean, we've saw it, I think, with Osiris Rex, where there was a certain difference between what the expectation was versus what was like in the end probed, right? So I think there's always a chance that these missions surprise you, because if everything was for certain already, that would have been not an interesting mission. There's things to prove here. There's things to learn and understand, and that's what's making this really interesting. And also, I want to point out, Psyche's big. Like, that's also another thing here. Psyche's kind of a big rock. Like, that's
Just look at that picture right there.
Yep. It let me look the exact, but it was quite big in overall size, right? Because that's like the number of it is like when the number it was discovered at, and usually like the lower numbers are bigger rocks because, well, they were easier to spot, right?
Yeah, and this particular one, by the way, the reason that it's called 16 Psyche, because this thing was discovered way back in the 1800s. I believe it was 1852, and named after the Greek goddess Psyche. But the 16 is basically, they're considering this kind of along the lines of a minor planet. It's the 16th minor planet in order of discovery, and it is one of the large M-class ones. So I gotta see if I can find the exact size of it.
I
It's
have the
big.
diameter.
Go.
It's apparently 222 kilometers of a mean diameter. And plus minus 3. The article here says plus minus 3. So,
Wow.
so might be 225. That would be impressive. But imagine it's only being 219. That would be like.
Well, then it's not as exciting. Oh well.
Yeah,
who
like
cares about that, right?
if the result of this mission in the end is like, oh, it's only 219 kilometers, I would be like, why did we fly there?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, iron nickel is
There we
the
go.
metallic makeup. So, yeah, it's we don't really have that much study of other iron core type exoplanets, or in this case, I guess, non-formed planets. It's so cool. Sorry,
This is an
I
this is
get
I,
hyped.
I'm just scamming through chat here, and we can make this a bit less formal with not a panel here. There was some disappointment voiced here that this is not a sample return mission. Can we talk about that? Why why you wouldn't make something a sample return versus like just sending something there. Like, what's the advantage of this being not a sample return mission?
Well, keep in mind also something like OSIRIS-REx, that's rock and ice mainly. So it's easy enough to go down with your tag SAM, release a vacuum essentially that then sucked up all the material and close it up. This is metal. Have you tried ever chopping at iron, not in Minecraft, and trying to get a sample of that? It's not something you can just quick and easily suck up like a vacuum and send it back to Earth. Also, you're talking a lot of extra weight for that because you're talking about needing to then get the sample return mechanism, a capsule that can then be enclosed. Then you need to be able to send it back to Earth. Instead, you get multiple scientific instruments for that weight instead, so you learn a heck of a lot more that way. I believe this one, according to JPL, has a multispectral imager, a gamma ray and neutron spectrometer, a magnetometer, and an X-band gravity science investigation on board.
That's a lot of instruments.
Don't ask me to tell you what any of those actually do, but that's what's on board.
And also, there's always the consideration: could have we even like done it? Because with sample returns, you're basically optimizing the mission for it, right? You're kind of picking like an asteroid that is close to Earth, probably, where you don't need to burn that much fuel, and the moment you're like, the more you go away, and the more energy you have to correct in terms of where we are in energy levels leaving the Earth's influence versus where the asteroid is, that can make big differences, right? Because you kind of need to at least correct for the difference between Earth speed and the asteroid speed, so you can kind of rendezvous with the asteroid to probe it. So it's the question is, would have been even possible with Psyche, and would that have been working?
Oh yeah. It's just, I love this mission here. I do want to say, we do have some super chats that came in about Starship. As soon as we go back to Starship, I will address those, so I promise I'm not ignoring them. But I do want to hit this one here from Bideford with a $50 super chat saying, just returned home from an open house, fruitful as well. Good. Thanks to my favorite YouTube channel, NSF, for making my Sunday. That sounds like a good Sunday. Good open house, good NSF. Love it. So thank you for the support a lot and for joining us. Here's a question. We have a bunch of Falcon Heavy Psyche related questions here. So I do want to hit a bunch of those too, in addition to the mission itself. Khaled asking, is this a fully expendable Falcon Heavy? And to go along with that, Spaceflight fan also asking, why did they stop trying to land the core stage of Falcon Heavy?
Ooh. That's an interesting one to answer. So, this is not a fully expanded, it's also not a fully reusable Falcon Heavy. It's the configuration we have kind of seen more and more. It's the configuration where both side boosters will land on LZ1 and 2. That will be B1064 and B1065 for their fourth flight. And B1079, the center core, will be expanded. So, why do they do this? Because they don't have the fuel budget, I think is the word, to land it. They need, this is such a high energy mission. They need so much fuel out of the center core. They need so much energy. They just don't have the margin anymore to land the center core. It's just not possible anymore. And that's for a Falcon Heavy.
And the other thing to keep in mind too is with the cadence that they are flying at right now and how far out the drone ship would have to be to catch this center core as well. I mean, you're talking, I believe they've tried before over 1,000 kilometers away for that, which is insane. And with how many Starlink things they're launching right now mission-wise, I mean, heck, there's another Starlink launch that just popped up on the calendar now for October 4th. So, as quick as they come, you need both drone ships.
Yeah, it's like, and of course there's like, the further you go down range, the more heat you will have, the more speed the center core will have at separation. So everything gets more difficult the more down range you get. And we have seen in the past the missions that demand the most out of the boosters, the missions that are the most likely to fail. And yeah, I mean, it's just not in the mass budget. And again, this is Falcon Heavy. It's one of the most capable rockets in the world. And this is a fairly light spacecraft. I think it's 2,800 kilograms. Let me make sure I get this right. 2,600 kilograms. And that's yeah. I think it's showing really well how much energy this will need to go to Psyche.
Yeah. And again, keep in mind this is just getting it. I believe the launch is sun synchronous orbit, if I recall correctly, on this one. So starting off with that, and again, that's just the parking orbits before it then goes on its way out to the asteroid belt.
Yeah, like, and do we know when Psyche is expected to, like, when do they expect to reach Psyche?
Let me see if I can recall. That is a great question.
I think it's like,
Um,
I know it's like late in the
years.
2020s.
Yeah, I believe it's scheduled for 2029,
There we go.
and we'll spend a little over 2 years in orbit around 16 Psyche.
That's like, I mean, that's like 6 years of travel time, right?
Yeah, oh, it's not SSO. It's just due east, I believe. So
It's such an interesting mission. And yes, NSF will cover it. Spoiler, we will cover this. And if you are interested more in Psyche, we will make sure that we will have a juicy broadcast for you ready with everything you need to know about Psyche, because
ooh,
that's our goal.
juicy.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Sorry, wrong payload. It's Psyche, not juicy.
Yeah, Juice launched already. But yes, I will be there as well in person too. So we will absolutely be there covering. I can guarantee that. I do want to just address this question here and then some super chats before we transition over back to Starship. New Normac asking, and I'll take this one. Do we know why NASA delayed Psyche? The answer is yes, we do. And it had to do with some changes to mission parameters in regards to the thrusters. So the thrusters that are used to point and move the vehicle are nitrogen cold gas thrusters. If the term cold gas thrusters sound familiar, well, that's because that's what Falcon 9 uses as well to help with its steering, especially for the first stage during its return. So those will fire to help turn things around for orientation and, basically cancel out any momentum. So the parameters were adjusted in response to some changes in temperature. So it turns out they thought that the temperature was going to be colder than it actually was. Turns out it's a little bit warmer. So operating the thrusters within temperature limits, as NASA says, is essential to ensure the long-term health of these units. So they're just basically doing some final checks there. And that's the Hall effect thrusters shown that we're looking at, by the way, just to point that out.
And just to confirm that, because I'm also using this now to learn about Psyche, because I know you know a lot. There's a window for this, right? And as soon as it leaves the window, they have to wait like a year?
1 year, yeah. We know this because, unfortunately, we've learned the hard way in 2022. It was not ready in time for this approximately 2-week window or so, and they had to wait until 2023. So, yeah, we're already now about a week into it, so there's, I think, a week or a week and a half of opportunity, so it kind of has to go. So, yeah, you want everything absolutely working. So now we just have to hope, based off of what we've seen as well the last couple days on Space Coast Live, and from living here, that Florida weather also decides to cooperate for this launch, which is now currently scheduled for no earlier than October 12th at 10:16 a.m. Eastern. And a reminder, they have until October 25th, or else it's 2024 if we don't.
It's kind of crazy, by the way, because you would think that if a launch is on October 12th, there's like maybe 1 or 2 launches before that, worldwide. Do you know how many rockets will launch before Psyche at this point, based on the next spaceflight schedule?
First off, exclamation point when hop. Second off, no, tell me.
It will be 6.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it's okay. It's like 3 Starlings, whatever.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, but still.
And then we have the debut of Project Kuiper
Yes.
on Atlas V late this week. We have Galactic 04 with Spaceship 2.
Which is crude.
And yes. And we have Vega from
Well, there's one you
Joanna.
don't hear very often.
Yeah, let's I'm crossing my fingers for Vega.
Why? Vega's been fine.
Has it though? Has it?
There's never been any issues with any recent Vega launches. Sarcasm.
Is that the moment where, as a European, I have to just look to the side like the meme?
Yes, that's exactly what you do.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it would be great if we get like another record also online. Looking at you, Ariane 6, it's time.
At least it's not China, which I was telling you this earlier, and I just posted
Yeah.
the video right before we went live. China could be a little crazy in terms of, obviously their launches, a lot of them go over land as opposed to over water, but that's a whole different story. In terms of recklessness, for those who have seen, there's been some really cool experiments regarding fire in space. Those are typically done in special glove boxes that they have on board the ISS or aboard Cygnus, as after it is undocked from the ISS prior to it burning up in Earth's atmosphere. In a recent series that they've been doing to teach kids back on Earth about how things behave differently in Earth versus in space, they'll literally have a split screen of, hey, here's what that looks like on Earth, here's what it looks like in space. They just lit a candle in the middle of the station in an oxygen-rich environment. No biggie.
It's I when you sent that to me, I was like, oh no.
What's the worst that could happen there, right?
Yeah, like what's the worst that could happen in space? Lighting a candle. Or like a match. It's interesting. It's an interesting move for sure. But I mean, so far it looks like it went well, right? Tiangong is still in space, so.
I mean, yeah.
Sure.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I just saw that. It's while we were talking about what could possibly go wrong, that popped into my head as just a thing that I saw.
It's also an interesting situation right now, because right now the only orbital class rocket based on methane that has ever reached orbit is Sukhoi 2 from China. And the interesting thing right now is it might also be the second, because Sukhoi 2 is also like apparently getting ready to launch again. So there might be a situation where the second methane-based rocket in orbit also will be Sukhoi 2.
That's wow, yeah.
Yeah. So,
couple quick super chats here regarding Psyche, and then we'll go back to Starship here. RC Horseman, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Smooth Juice, finally, I am ready for my trip of a lifetime to KSC. Going to watch the Psyche mission and can't wait. This is it. I love that. I know we've have a couple of team members also going down. Ryan coming in from the UK for it. I'm going to offer some advice here. And I've said this before for other launches, but if this is your first launch or even one of your first launches, please don't take that many pictures of launch or video of launch. Because I can guarantee you, as someone who does it for a living now, or for NSF here, you're going to spend 95% of your time looking through the lens of your camera or looking at your phone screen. This is something you want to experience with your own eyes because it is so unique, it is so different. And again, like I said, NSF will have cameras everywhere. We will have video cameras everywhere. So if you want to relive it, especially in the highest quality, you can always come back to the channel here and take a look at the replay. You can't get a replay with your own eyes. So
yeah, you won't capture something that everybody else misses, but you can make sure you witness it yourself.
If you want to set your phone down somewhere to record it, absolutely by all means. But especially for something like a Falcon Heavy, you want to get the full experience. Because again, it's not just visual. You very much hear it. You very much feel it. Yes, you will physically feel it. And don't forget, this is also the double booster landing. So you will also have the insane visuals of a dual RTLS. You'll have the insane sonic booms of a dual RTLS. It is an all-encompassing experience of every single sense you could think of except smell. So enjoy it.
Yeah, I
I'm off
remember.
the box.
It's like the first like I have the luxury right now that my first launch is not that long ago. And I have problems even recalling every second of it because there's like a moment of adrenaline and you start to just like witness it and enjoy it, and at some point you kind of forget what's happening, which is kind of cool.
Exactly. And I should say, if you do get sense of smell from the rocket, then something went very, very wrong.
Yeah, you shouldn't smell the rocket. If you smell the rocket should be away from you like a few kilometers. That shouldn't happen.
I can say I have smelled rocket though, but that was after Atlas launches. When you go out to the launch pad, it smells kind of like car battery acid, but also kind of like something that was supposed to be sweet that turned sour. So
That doesn't sound like right. I like pleasant.
that's not as bad as when you accidentally then touch your camera covered in solid rocket motor dust that causes your fingers to go all tingly for a couple hours.
Yeah, the good thing is that nothing is ever in the solid rocket motors that could in any way, shape, or form be hazardous for the human being, right?
Yeah,
Ever.
now you tell me. I mean, I finally got sensation back in my fingers, but I mean, yeah. Like Crispy said, sounds like his attempt at homebrew. All right. We do have some super chats here that I've been holding off on Starship related that I do want to address. So, thank you for hanging in there for the people in the support queue, and thank you for the support still. Musical Wolves. Will it likely launch next month? I know we kind of addressed that earlier, but we never really gave like a time frame. Do you think October is still possible?
Oh, okay. Next month is November, right?
It is.
Okay. I think next month, good chance. This month, based on FAA statements, based on everything we have heard, based on the situation, at the end, I don't think it's realistic to expect like a Starship launch in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Based on the signals we get from FAA, from SpaceX, I think it's still quite a bit away.
Yeah, I would agree. It would be nice to see the end of October. I know Ryan, who's only here till the end of October, is rooting for that, but no, I think we're looking closer to November.
Yeah, I
I
think
hope I'm
that's-
wrong. I very much hope I'm wrong. I want to see this thing launch.
Yeah. Also, just quick clarification: methane doesn't stink.
Not on
Yeah.
its own natural rate.
Yes, methane
There-
itself doesn't have like a smell. I think, right?
Correct. A lot of times, if there's a company working with methane, they will add something with a scent to it. So if there is a methane leak, you're aware of it. And for other functions that release methane, yeah, that's not the methane you're smelling. You're welcome.
Just I saw that question. I'm just quickly wanted to answer it.
Yeah, that's why Crispy isn't with us. He tried smelling methane. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, for those, I do just want to say it out now. Crispy, who pointed out earlier that he's not feeling well, everyone in chat, just say, feel better, Chris. We love you. And maybe, someone said, maybe it's because he was actually watching footy, but the Jets play tonight, so.
Oh, I wanna point out that every time I'm on NSF Live, I feel like my football club is doing horrible, and it happened again today. So yeah, let's move away from the sports as fast as we can.
Yeah, I mean, That's totally, yeah. Crispy was on a wild bender there with his teams, of course. No. But anyway, let's continue on with space stuff here. Doug Martin with a good question. In regards to the interstage adapter clamps, do you know if both sides, booster and ship, are now controlled, or is it only the ship?
I believe basically what will happen is, like in terms of like the clamps, well, the clamps are kind of on the top of the ring at this point. So what we expect is these clamps on the top of the ring to retract, and then the ship to open. But the clamps are on the top of the ring. So these will open, and then hopefully the engines will already have been fired, and with that the ship departs. That's the hope. But I feel like the hot staging moment for this launch will be the excitement guaranteed moment.
Oh, yes, and especially with that, it's the literal definition of always be thrusting.
Oh, absolutely.
Edwards574 asking, do you think they will mod the launch tower so they can arm the FTS without destacking? I don't think that's
Yes.
possible based off of the exact location, though, is it? Aren't they on the opposite side?
I mean, they could have a swing arm or something, like down the line. I think that the design, like the rocket, is too early in its maturing to really do that. I think down the line they will for sure try to correct this somehow. I don't think they wanted to destack every time they arm the FTS. Either they will make it fully mechanical, and then the question is that allowed completely? Like, there might be. So I tried to get from the FAA like an overview of like what's required from a flight safety system, and sadly it's not somewhere in the requirements. But I wonder if like SpaceX way of licensing it requires manual arming. So there might be also the situation where there needs to be somebody to pull the pins, and then you have either the way to destack it or to build an arm. Like that's your two operations.
I mean, the other thought is we've seen them with the giant lifts, the cherry pickers, the crane things. I'm sure they have ones that can reach high enough to probably pop the pins, but
Nope, that's the problem.
oh yeah, that.
They cannot reach with the cherry pickers all the way to. So they can reach the booster part. The booster is not a problem, but the ship, that's the problem. They cannot reach the ship. FTS system. So that's why they need to destack.
Why don't you just pull an SN-15, hot fire it off the top, land it, and then do it?
I mean, yeah, for sure, but then you're not allowed to hop it because you have not armed the FTS. It's a chicken and egg situation.
Oh, yeah. By the way, thanks. Now I'm hungry.
Do you want chicken or egg?
Yes.
Nice, chicken with egg.
There you go. Yeah. That sounds so wrong. I'm sorry. Let's see. Here's one from Apollo asking, is it expected that Falcon Heavy will stop being used once Starship takes over? I'm pretty sure the answer to that is yes. I know Elon in the past has said that the eventual goal is to retire the Falcon fleet in terms and favor of Starship. I know for now they're going to be sticking with Falcon 9 for a little while because of the whole NASA commercial crew contract. And I know that they're going to be sticking with Falcon Heavy at least for a little bit longer, too, because of their current plan for the Lunar Gateway. But eventually, I think the plan is Starship all the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's more like defining when are we talking about takeover. So, will there be a point where Falcon will be retired as a rocket? Yes. Will there be a point where probably Falcon has been retired and Starship still flies? Yes. Is that point in the next 10 years? No. Probably not. Falcon will fly probably for the next 10 or so years because there are some missions that won't go over to the they won't go to Starship. They're designed with specific throttle profiles, with specific G-force limitation, with specific like details related to Falcon 9. They're high-profile missions, and they don't care if Starship is ready. Like they I think one big example is probably the Nancy Grace Roman telescope. Like
Yeah,
that would never ever go to Starship. That will always stay on Falcon.
I mean, I'm excited for that mission a lot, but sorry, yeah,
Yes.
it would.
I
And I mean, the other thing, and it's kind of being pointed out in the back channel, but I want to mention this on air and kind of elaborate on it, saying that Starship could start launching and then take 10 years to reach 100 launches a year, which I hope it doesn't take that long. But when you think about it, in regards to Falcon 9, they're not even at 100 launches per year. They're close. But in the history of Falcon 9, as reliable as that vehicle is, as crazy of a launch cadence as they have right now, it hasn't reached 100 launches a year. Falcon Heavy, which you've got the larger vehicles, again, in terms of a heavy lift vehicle, has only had 7 flights ever. This will be number 8 for Psyche. So I think it's still going to be a little while. Admittedly, the rate of development on Starship has been insane. From concept to build, especially going from 7 and 24 to 9 and 25, has been crazy fast. But even at that kind of a pace, even at a Falcon 9 kind of pace, it's still going to take a while. In my
Yeah,
opinion.
even if we double the pace of Falcon 9, like even if we assume Starship will do it in double the time of Falcon 9, we are still talking about many years. Like building rockets and scaling them takes time.
Oh, yeah. For all the people talking about then after of, oh, could they maybe strap 3 starships together? Yeah, that might be, besides the
no.
never, if it did happen, it would be a very, very, very long time.
I think the technical term that was given on this channel for this concept is Starship Super Duper Heavy. Yeah, no. Also,
I'm
I
gonna
want
go
to
with
quickly...
Starship Stupid Dupid Heavy, but that's just me.
Yeah, it's like how badly do you want to roast your launch pad? And the answer is probably just a big yes. But also remember that payload capacity tends to take some years to be utilized. Like we see now with Falcon Heavy that industry, government, and like agencies are starting to use the capability of Falcon Heavy. That's happening now, many years after it first flew, and even more years after it was first like announced for grabs for contracts. Starship will take many years before people and especially agencies have the demand for it, because the industry will need some time, because you cannot build a satellite in a day. It takes more time.
Right, yeah. Rome wasn't built in a day, neither was Nancy Roman Grace telescope.
Yep.
All right, that was a stretch. That one was bad. I know. All right, I have to address this one because I know Das had talked about it in our back channel yesterday, and the day before that I saw what I think is one of the most cursed images, and it was a Crew Dragon 2 strapped to a Falcon Heavy. Frederick asking, what about crew-rated Falcon Heavy? Besides the fact that the image of it absolutely burned my eyes.
I mean, that's all related to the concept of Grey Dragon, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Which was the idea of building a human-rated capsule for the moon. I think there were 2 concepts, right? It was Red Dragon for Mars and Grey Dragon for the moon.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that plan seems to be down the drain, with the fact that they're kind of moving all efforts to Starship as much as they can, and also there doesn't seem to be much demand. But yeah, crew rating a vehicle is also kind of hard. So that's also a thing. Like crew rating Falcon Heavy would take some time.
Exactly, right. And very early on, after around, I think it was the first static fire ahead of the Falcon Heavy demo flight, I do recall Elon basically saying that they didn't have any plans really to crew rate Falcon Heavy anymore at that point. That the goal was that everything would be the BFR at the time, and then the ITS, and now Starship.
Also, I want to point out what big implications such a modification would have for Dragon. Because we have a good example of this right now with the European Service Module and Orion for SLS. Because there are modifications, especially on the European Service Module side, some minor structural load modification once this whole system changes from the ICPS, the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, to the exploration upper stage, which is a different load profile. It's a different engine, it's a different way to get to the moon. And that's just the change of the upper stage, and is still in a very similar range. Now we are talking about Falcon 9 to Falcon Heavy, which is tripling your liftoff thrust. That means more vibrations, that probably, depending on the ascent profile, means more G-force. There's a lot of implications around this. And that means you have to think again about your structural profile of your capsule. It's not trivial. You cannot just put a capsule on any rocket and it doesn't have any implication. It's optimized for these rockets.
Also, keep in mind the launch escape system, or the launch abort capability, is designed to pull the vehicle away from a single core gone wrong. A triple core gone wrong, you're going to need to get away probably even a little bit faster. So,
yeah, it's like triple the boom.
yes. It's not like double the pleasure, double the fun of double mid-gum for those who remember those old commercials in the US.
Yeah, I'm out with that.
I blame my parents for knowing way too many of the older commercials. Thanks, Mom. Love ya. Let's see what else we got here. Here's a question. So we've got a couple questions here about Ship 26. We know Ship 26 is over to the Rocket Garden. The transport stand, at least, was moved over there. What do we think it's doing over there? What do we think is going to happen to Ship 26?
Ship 26 should be at the...
Well, no, the transport stand was moved to the
Yeah.
Rocket Garden, is what they're saying.
Yeah, so far is... I mean, right now I expect it to be tested at some point. I've expected to see tests on it since, I don't know, like 2 weeks ago. I'm still surprised it was no test so far. It's still like chilling in the suborbital launch site and just waiting for tests to happen. But I'm like very surprised because they rolled it out, then they opened the tanks there, worked on it for a bit, closed the tanks, and since then have not touched it. And it's just sitting there. And I'm still not sure why they rolled it out.
Insert meme of poking with a stick. Come on, do something.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they waited for a window of the orbital campaign to test Ship 26, and I feel like that window is here, and they're still not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of just chilling at this point. Like we were talking about earlier, not as much going on with the full stack besides the actual stacking. So yeah, it would be a great time to do some Ship 26 testing. I'd love to see that. Just another VR user has
never fly it, and then never fly it.
Well, just another VR user has a thought potentially of, could it be possible Ship 26 would could be on the pad to test damage to other ships during a launch? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
You never want to intentionally destroy stuff nearby.
Also, I think that would have been like, if you want to verify that, you want to have flaps on it, because I feel like that's significantly changing the surface area of the ship. So that would have significantly changed the damage you would apply to it. So I don't think it's for that.
Well, I think it's safe to say then that 26 isn't just flapping about.
Okay, cool.
It sounds like faffing about, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The cough just made it. I'm sorry. That
Yep.
was yeah. Well, while we're talking about ships, what about Ship 27's aft section at Massey's? Any news on that? Simon's asking.
It's being it's in a testing rig. It's
Right.
an interesting thing because it seems like they're just using like the spare part to verify or test something, and be like, hey, we have time, let's test this. I wonder what they test, because I would imagine that the things they would test on Ship 27 are probably also implemented on Ship 28, which has been already cryo tested. So it's an interesting question what will happen there. Even Ship 29, like they're already way past Ship 27 in the test plan. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
they're now Ship 29 cryo tested, Ship 28 still sitting on the engine installation stand. So yeah, it's I don't think we have any update what they're exactly doing with it besides testing it. And there you go, by the way. That's Ship 29, and that's Ship 27's aft section right next to it.
There you go. Which Mike has a question about Ship 29 while we're looking at it. Because again, like you mentioned, they are moving fast through these. Ship 26 and 7, or 26 without the flaps there. You've got 28 on the engine stand, 29 aft section out at Massey's. What are the possibilities of Ship 29 being scrapped for later, even more advanced ships? I think I know they've got others in the works, but I feel like at this point, with the testing they're doing on it, they might be using it as kind of a test article more than a flight article? What do you think?
I mean, it still takes some significant time from the later ships to get ready. Right now, Ship 28 and Ship 29 are kind of approaching the point where they could be engine tested. So I think it's like these are probably candidates for the next third flight stack. I like 30 and 31 and everything. Like, just because a ship is fully stacked, that doesn't mean it's ready. That still means there's some TPS work going. There's some minor detailed work going on, especially on like stuff like engine shielding. There's the engine installation after cryo test. There's still a lot of work going on after your ship is stacked. So even if you right now, for example, would commit to ship 31 flying the next flight, you cannot probably static fire ship 31 for a good month or so from now.
Right.
So it just takes time.
And it's also interesting that, again, Ship 28's over at the engine install stand, kind of just hanging out there right now, too. And you've got these that are now being stacked in the high bay, mega bay area. So, just quite interesting. Again, the fact that 31 was also just stacked this week. So,
Yeah, the ships are really like they have a lot of ships around, and also a lot of boosters. They have some hardware to test. It's really a hardware intensive campaign and program, and sometimes it's kind of impressive how much hardware they can just assemble there and stack and get it ready. And then of course you always run into a situation where you feel like something is ready, and then like the last 10% take forever.
and of course, they just keep shipping them all over the place at Starbase 2 now. So,
yeah, even boostering.
Couple more questions here about Ship 26, and I've seen a couple people actually asking about this, of basically just kind of flying it on its own. Could they just launch 26 by itself to a low Earth orbit? Or I also saw a question asking if it could be used as kind of just a sort of test ground in space, like for temperature monitoring in terms of fuels and how hot or cold the vehicle gets.
They're probably not there from like we know that Elon has in the past talked about that a ship probably without any payload could reach orbit. But I doubt they're there from the mass yet, because usually mass saving takes a lot of iteration. Second, would that gain them that much? I feel like right now the main focus is on boosters and getting the booster ready and making sure the booster flight works. I feel like they should focus their attention and time on getting a successful booster flight in their books, and not focus on any like upper stage testing anymore. And once that has been done, then they get a upper stage in space. Like that's the bonus of it. but they need to learn to fly these boosters. That's the main thing to learn right now.
Exactly. I mean, it really feels like, as you mentioned, these full flights are kind of testing the booster first. They did get a good lesson as well about the whole separation mechanism too during the first flight, hence the hot staging ring. So I feel like at this point, the next mission, the second integrated flight test, the main goal is A, obviously the launch through max Q again, but B, getting to that separation point. And I think the only way you can confirm that is obviously doing the hot staging itself, firing up the engines on board the ship, doing the separation, testing the mechanism that way. The ship is kind of more of just a way to test the booster. So it'll be interesting, I think, to see how that happens. And then, of course, anything beyond that is free data. That's just my thought.
Yeah, I feel like we're on the same page here. Overall, I feel like we are kind of aligned on the same page here. Overall, I feel like we might see just a few of these tests we have seen with the first launch, like these integrated flight tests, just over and over again.
Hang on. Ding ding. Fight mode act. No, wait.
Oh no.
We actually agree.
Yeah, it's always the worst if the fight mode was like two people agreeing.
Yeah. Let's see here. We have some support. I do want to thank David Cranford for becoming a Red Team member. So thank you very much for the support. And thank you for everyone who's been supporting during the stream. So we really appreciate that here, even if it's just a thumbs up, a like, people getting items from the store at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. All of that's really genuinely appreciated. So just want to take a moment to say thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for the support.
Oh, yeah. Let's see here. Trying to see some of the other questions. I'll go with this then. Just what's your prediction? Actually, this was a really good question I saw. That's kind of forward thinking. C7 Ouchie asking, what do you think Ship 50 will be like?
Oh, that's interesting. That's. Do you have any thoughts? Like
I
Ship
do.
50. Go ahead.
I mean, hopefully by then they'll be well past the point of testing the thermal protection system. So I think the TPS tiling and the location of those tiles is going to be totally different from what we see now. I hope by then we'll get to see the 9 engines in the ship as has been discussed. I think that'll be exciting. And then the other interesting thing will be to see if they have any sort of type of landing mechanism installed on it. Obviously, the plan of everything being reusable. So I think that's going to be the big thing when we get to Ship 50. We'll get through all those iterations at that point, and hopefully it'll be testing the TPS and the landing systems.
I think, I agree with all you just said. I think what it also will feature is a change of the aerodynamic flaps in some way. I think they have hinted in the past that they might change the position of some of them. I think that's the area where we will for sure see a change of the position of them. And I also think the TPS will have been changed a bit to further, because they have been getting accurate models. I think there might be a change in TPS and where they are applied and where not.
I guess the question now, because NASASpaceflight in chat saying Ship 50 will have windows, crew cabins, and an onboard casino. Do you think that will be operational by Ship 50?
Operational in the sense of launching Starlinks or like
Yeah.
payloads? Starlinks
Yeah,
for sure.
payload launching.
Starlinks for sure. I'm not sure about satellites yet. I think that will be right around where we might see the first satellite launch. Like the first non-Starlink satellite, I think.
I'm sure there will be some ambitious company out there that's willing to take the risk and launch that first flight on a Starship after, as you mentioned, proving it with their Starship launches. I know SpaceX kind of had that deal when it came to flying on reflown boosters of the first companies that were willing to put their satellites on a previously flown booster. And then eventually even NASA's like, yeah, sure, fly crew on top of a previously flown one, it's fine. Just got to get that barrier breaker.
I agree.
Speaking of barrier breaker, I think this was a barrier breaking episode. I don't know the last time we've had an NSF Live with just 2 people here.
I
But-
think this might have been the first time.
There you go. But
So,
I say
was
just with
fun,
2
though.
people. I say just with 2 people, but that's not all the people that make this possible. We have all the amazing people that support us, including some of our members, especially those that get their name here at the end of all of our NASA Spaceflight Lives, and that is our launch directors and our flight engineers. So a big thank you to all of those names that you see on screen with their extra generous support that help make all of this possible and help us bring these streams to you, and even if it's only 2 of us, still bringing in all of those gorgeous views from Starbase and from the kind of gorgeous views from the Cape despite the weather. So a huge thank you to all of our members at every level, especially the launch directors and flight engineers, so thank you. On that, I'd like to thank everybody who joined us here this afternoon. Hang on, let me see his long list. Oh yeah, Adrian, thanks for being here with me.
I really like this, Sawyer. I think this like conversational, more podcast kind of style NSF Live, that was a fun experience. I mean, I think we should note this down for the future. Maybe there's like another situation where we want to do this again, right? I feel like, chat, did you like that?
I was just about to say, I wonder what chat's reaction is to that. In the meantime, even though it was only 2 of us, there was still behind the scenes helping to make all of this possible. So a huge shout out to Patrick for making all of the behind the scenes things happen, especially given some technical issues that you never got to see, thankfully, because he's just that awesome and made it look super smooth for you guys. So big shout out. Thank you, Patrick, for pushing through to help push the stream to you guys. So yeah, it seems like people really like it. They just miss the cameras. Which, trust me, be glad that I don't have my camera on at the moment. I'll just say that. I haven't shaved, not looking like camera ready. So
Yeah, even the NSF team has casual Sundays.
exactly. And Jake, yes, you don't get to see Jake. So I guess technically there was 3 of us because Jake was on my lap for half of that. So.
There we go.
But regardless, thank you everyone for joining us for NSF Live. You like the views that you see on screen? Don't forget, you can get those 24/7 on our Starbase live feeds. And if you want to keep an eye on the process ahead of the Psyche launch that we talked about, that can also be done on Space Coast Live 24/7. And if you want more methane, well, that is McGregor Live, where they do all of the engine testing and all of the cows. But I have been your host, Sawyer Rosenstein. Hopefully we'll see some of you guys over on those 24/7 feeds, but if not, we will see you next time. Thank you, as always, for our little mini podcast here of NSF Live. Have a great day.
And here we go.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RTPA chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, Tingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?